welcome to the very first episode of our brand new podcast, Daring Faith. I'm Simina.
And I'm Genesee.
And I cannot believe it's finally time to launch this podcast.
I know, right?
It went from being just an idea and a vision we had to becoming an actual ministry, and it's so surreal, but we couldn't be more excited to launch this.
Yeah.
The last few months have been really busy as we've prepped all of season 1 and really gotten everything into place and details figured out, but the Lord has been so good through all of it, and we're very thankful for, first and foremost, the privilege to host this, and we also cannot wait to see where the Lord will take this ministry and how He will bless others through it.
Absolutely. In today's episode, we want to give you all a chance to get to know us, and then we also want to dive into what inspired this podcast, the heart, the vision behind the ministry, and take a deeper look at season 1 and what we hope to accomplish through it.
Yeah.
So Simina and I are both from Southern California. Yes. We're currently both in school. I'm working towards a degree as an ultrasound tech, and Simina, you're...
currently finishing up my bachelor's, hoping to go to PA school soon.
Nice. We both grew up in the Romanian church and have been serving there since we were, basically all our lives.
Yeah, right.
And although we're pretty, recently moved to our current home church, and we'll get into that story of how that all happened soon. And we've actually only been friends for about a year now. There's actually a huge testimony to that, which we'd love to share with you guys. Do you want to kind of dive into that?
Sure, I'd love to. So, as Jen mentioned, we haven't known each other for too long. We met back in May of last year when all of the United gatherings were happening during COVID, and I was in a season of my life earlier that year where I was praying that God would really bring friends into my life, which had a like-minded vision and passion as I had, friends who would draw me closer to Christ and not only encourage, but also push me to be a better person, to be a better Christian, and to really live out the calling God had for my life.
I was also in a similar place.
Yeah.
A season of change where the Lord was putting people into my life and, taking people out of my life as well.
Right. And we didn't know that about each other at the time, but I remember praying at the beginning of 2020 that God would really send people my way who would become my true friends and who I could serve together with and do life with. And that's exactly what happened. And it's crazy to me that a year ago we met and we're already starting a ministry together.
Yeah.
But it's been the biggest blessing to have these people who aren't just friends that talk to you and you all hang out. Not that it's a bad thing, but also people who challenge you and push you to be better. Friends who see your full potential and don't allow you to stay stagnant, but rather to continue growing more and more.
Yeah. Absolutely. And guys, we encourage you all to pray that God sends people your way.
Yeah.
It might sound like a silly prayer, but, whether or not you feel like you've got good friends or are in a season where maybe there aren't many of those people in your life, pray that God will bring forth individuals, which fear Him, who pursue Him, who love Him, and who will push you to do the same.
Yeah, and it's so incredibly important. I'm glad you brought that up, Jen. And we actually met through a mutual friend at one of these United Youth Nights my old church had hosted. We got to talking and we were able to relate with one another on a lot, and we clicked. A couple weeks later, we started hanging out one-on-one, and I got to know Jen's heart more and she got to know mine, and we started having those deeper conversations and really seeing what we each had a passion for and wanted to see within our churches and our youth.
One of the things we really wanted to see was people stepping up and taking risks, saying yes to God, even if it was scary and even if they didn't have all the answers right away, or individuals who were willing to step out courageously into unknown territory, surrendering fully to God and His will for, their lives, and just trusting Him in full obedience. And little did we know that would become, part of our vision for this ministry a year later.
Yeah. And we honestly did not expect to do this podcast, guys.
No.
I never imagined myself starting my own ministry, let alone a podcast.
Yeah.
But hey, it's been such a blessing, and we now see why the Lord put it on our hearts to do something like this. And it's super exciting. So that's just a little bit of a backstory of how we met. And I think we can kind of get into the testimony of moving to our church now, Emmanuel.
Yeah, let's do it. So Simina and I, for about a year now, have been attending Emmanuel Church of God in Anaheim, California.
Yes.
To be completely honest, we both never thought we'd come to this church, but the Lord really changed our perspective and our old mindset. And it's been one of the biggest blessings in this season. We found friends, a community, mentors, and people here who love God more than anything. And it's just been so awesome. Yeah. And, through this, the Lord was trying to teach us what full obedience, meant. Simina and I were both in a season of our lives where we just wanted to see the Lord work and move. And we said we were prepared to obey at all costs. And Simina, I know you specifically prayed that the Lord would teach you to obey him more.
Yeah. I remember having this pretty cheesy prayer, at least I thought it was, and now I'm sharing it on a public platform. But
all good.
I remember saying, God, I want to be part of something big that you're going to do. Like, I was thinking back at all these great evangelists and people who started this giant thing. And I was like, God, use me, test my faith, grow my obedience. And I want to see something amazing happen.
Yeah, and of course, we all hear the saying, be careful what you pray for.
Yeah.
God definitely brought that very thing in both of our lives, and a major step in that was him putting in our hearts to move to Emmanuel.
Right.
Like I said earlier, we never thought we would. We knew about the church and heard some stuff, and we don't want to keep that information from you guys, especially other churches in California. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of Emmanuel and, different things that go on and all that.
Yeah.
And we were honestly a bit worried. One, about our reputation, and two, about all the, questionable stuff we heard, which, we haven't personally experienced. But of course, anyone would wonder and ask, those questions.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to Emmanuel, I felt the presence of God so strongly.
Yeah,
and it was
same.
such a beautiful night of worship and prayer. The songs, the exhortations, everything, they were all so anointed, and you could feel the presence of God, like I said. And I remember thinking that first time that I could see myself coming to a church like this. And it felt like home almost instantly, which is kind of crazy. But the best way I could explain it was a place where I felt the Lord was calling me to, and a place I could call my personal church.
Yeah, I remember when Simina invited me a couple Sundays after, the first time she went.
Yeah.
It was beautiful and such an authentic worship experience. Everyone was so incredibly welcoming.
Yeah. We
felt embraced and loved and welcomed right off the bat. And we were both really missing that community aspect to church, until then.
Yeah.
We felt kind of disconnected in churches we'd been part of almost all our lives, or like a significant part of them.
Yeah.
It was so refreshing to be welcomed and feel like we were already part of the church family, just visiting a couple times.
Right.
And then came a point where we really had to just pray and seek the Lord's will.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually didn't know how the other one of us was feeling at this point. I remember it wasn't until later that we talked and we realized we kind of felt the same way, and that we both felt the Lord really guiding us to move.
Yeah, Simina actually brought it up to me in a random parking lot by Ross one night. She opened up and told me that, it's been on her heart to go to this church more often, and she felt the Lord calling her there. I ended up sharing with her my feelings and thoughts, and we just decided to take some time to pray and process everything. Not to just jump into a decision, base it off feelings,
Yeah, that's so important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially if there's, a void at your current church, we'll get into this in a future episode, but every church has its flaws, and there's never a perfect place, you know, especially within our Romanian community. There's so much we need to work on and improve within all of our churches, but it's crucial to not just go somewhere because that new church does something better than your old church did. You know, I think different churches have different strengths, but
yeah, for sure.
Maybe there's a ministry you wish your old church had, which this one has, and then you're moving there, you know, whatever it may be. Prayer is so important. And honestly, you do not know everything about a church until you attend that church. We're still learning more and more information as we go. And every day, you know, we're finding things out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely things at Emmanuel which are far from perfect. Yeah. But as long as the people there have the same vision and goal to pursue Christ and honor him and worship him in a way that directly resembles his word and his character, you know, that's what matters the most.
Absolutely.
You know, so after a couple of months of really getting to know the ministries there, the pastors, the leadership, the people, and again, praying into this, we both decided to make that our home church. It's been amazing until now, and we know that God has great things in store for this church. And honestly, guys, if you want more info on this, feel free to visit anytime or DM us, and we'd love to chat and share even more about this testimony.
Yes, definitely. The story of the podcast, it kind of stems back to that testimony of obedience. So another vision the Lord put on our hearts where it was up to us to decide what we wanted to do with it, you know? And that's one big lesson we learned. God doesn't always speak to you in this way as in, oh, Simina, I want you to do exactly this at exactly this time and accomplish exactly that. You know, sometimes it's just an open door or an idea that you have on your heart. Someone else throws an idea at you and you just got to pray about it, obviously. But sitting there and expecting like divine intervention, quote unquote, you know, it's not always the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a simple open door which the Lord put there for you to walk through or not to walk through. He'll bless you, but he'll bless you more one way, you know, and that's your choice. And we've also got wisdom, you know, that's a whole other topic, but we should never stop praying for that wisdom, that discernment, to hear the voice of God and to really think through whether or not a ministry is for us. And I think it's, you know, a combination of both. I'm not at all saying that God doesn't open doors or that God, and that's not a way in which he speaks, but we also can't wait for some thundering voice or a crazy dream all the time where the Lord directly speaks to us and what to do.
And we will have an episode on hearing the voice of God and looking how he speaks way down the line. Yeah. You know, but it's an important topic and something I think we all wonder and, you know, think about because there's not just one right or wrong answer, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So this idea of the podcast started simply with two girls speaking their minds one day and dreaming. At the time, a friend and I were carpooling. I lived in Riverside, and we were thinking back on that conversation that night. We got really real. We started talking about some stuff that's literally never talked about, which we've all wondered at one point or another. Yeah. You know, those touchy topics, and it's so cool hearing different perspectives, and it brought clarity and light, and it was really refreshing. I remember telling my friend how awesome it would be for that conversation to be recorded and accessible to other people.
Yeah, especially with our move to Emmanuel. As soon as we opened up about why we moved and the testimony, so many people were able to relate to us.
Right.
And we met so many awesome people with similar stories.
Right,
which is crazy.
And that's the same, this kind of was the same thing. Of course, other people have thought about these things. So why not make this info accessible, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of only addressing it in our close circles, let's look at what the Bible says and make a resource that others can use. And that's when the idea kind of came up as a joke. Let's start a podcast. And at that moment, I remember thinking about it for a split second. We laughed it off. I honestly thought it was a joke, but the idea never left my mind. And I started brainstorming into it. I knew it wasn't just a coincidence. And I thought it was a really cool way to, to minister to people, even within, like, obviously the Romanian community, but abroad, and not just within our own church, but within other churches, you know? And it was different. A good way to reach people. So I prayed and I met with my friend and we just brainstormed, if we were to do this, what would it be about? You know, and that's when the vision came. and the verse that encompassed it all, the mission statement. Midnight in the prayer room at church with ice cream, literally racking our brains. But it all fell into place, and there was so much confirmation there through other people. I felt the Lord really calling me to go for it and to press deeper. And eventually, there was a point where my friend felt the Lord calling her to something else. And she's serving him very faithfully with an incredible ministry of her own. I'm so proud to see her doing that. But I needed someone to do the podcast with. So it was back to a season of waiting and praying and searching.
Yeah. And that's when I came along.
Yep.
Thank you very much. But honestly, it was crazy to see how, closely our visions lined up. And I was so excited to partner up with Simina on something so cool. Yeah. We went through a period of really doubting and feeling unqualified, spiritually and, being so unprepared. But so many people encouraged us to just say yes. And we learned such a valuable lesson in that as well. Your job isn't to figure out whether or not you're ready to step out, into a role God is placing you in. He qualifies those he calls. It's just, that simple yes and a leap of faith. And then you're able to marvel at how much God accomplished through you.
Yeah, and in the Bible, we read so many stories where God chooses those that are weak, those that are younger, those who don't have the highest status, But they said yes. And through their obedience, we read the greatest stories ever to be written. And from that point on, it became, yes, God. We saw how beautifully you orchestrated our move to Emmanuel, and we see now how great it all worked out. But this time, we're saying yes, unaware of what the outcome will be. Just saying yes, not to see the harvest, but rather because you told us to do this. And whether this reaches 1,000 or just one, we did our part by obeying the calling the Lord put on our hearts. So a little off topic, but guys, I hope that was encouraging for you all. And if you find yourselves in a season similar to this, the best advice we can give you is go for it and say yes. Obviously make sure it's God's will and it's the right season, but don't let the fear get in the way. Don't let doubt stop you. Be bold, take risks, whether you think it'll work out or not. God knows why he called you to something. He knows exactly what you're capable of. And in order to grow, you need to be stretched. You need to be challenged. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be worried about what people will think. Do not be discouraged by the fear of messing up. If you do, mess up big. Yeah. Get back up, turn it into a learning experience. Be better, be stronger next time.
Yeah, all good stuff. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk briefly about the verse and the vision behind this ministry.
Yes.
There are two main things we want to see happen with Daring Faith. One, we equip you guys to go for it and step into Christ's calling for your lives. And two, we give you the practical tools and biblical insight to be equipped to be different, bold, and set apart.
Yeah.
So the vision is simple. Daring Faith is a podcast where we empower the everyday Jesus-loving guys and gals to be bold, to be different, to be set apart, living defined by Christ for a purpose and for such a time as this. We want to create a platform for guests to share how the Lord has been working in and through them, tackle difficult and relevant topics that, all young adults relate to, and equip you all with the practical tools required to step out as the Joshuas of our generation. And that's the heart behind this podcast. It's simple, but it's to the point. And the verse that inspired us the most, again, is simple, but so powerful. It's Joshua 1:9, specifically the ESV version. It stood out to us the most out of all the versions. But it says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Faith requires risk, you guys. And we said earlier, it requires stepping into unknown territory, surrendering fully to God and his will for our lives, and trusting him through the process in full obedience. So that's what we hope to accomplish here. And as we mentioned before, whether it reaches a bunch of people or just, one person, we aren't in it for the recognition. We simply want to see a generation ready now more than ever to serve the Lord and to step into their calling and their full potential, and to be on fire for God and to not care about the opposition, but instead to have courage and to be bold and to understand that we're here for this time, and this purpose.
Yeah, we strongly believe this generation has such a powerful calling, but it's only possible through each and every single member of the body stepping it up and doing something. We want to see change, but we have to be that change.
Yeah, and I think that about sums it up. So let's chat about season 1.
Yes, absolutely. So season 1 is all related to church and ministry. We have a list of episodes on our Instagram page, which you guys can check out.
Yes.
We want to talk about everything from ministry and serving to what a home church is, to relationships within the church, and much more. So you guys do not want to miss out. And I will warn you, there will be some touchy topics that will be controversial, but I don't know how to emphasize this enough, guys. We're not here to give our opinions or go based off of what we feel in the moment. You know, we're simply giving you guys biblical insight into what the Bible says about this stuff. Opinions aside, we're giving you all the tools. And just because it's controversial does not mean it's not to be talked about, right?
Yeah, no.
Because again, we definitely all do talk about this with friends and with family, but we don't really get into it with other people. It's not a common sermon topic sometimes, and sometimes we may wonder, like, what does the Bible say about this? Or if somebody asked me, what would my stance be biblically? So why not really get deep and understand the heart of God when it comes to these things? And that's honestly pretty much it. We'll eventually get into personal life and walk with Christ, maybe even some deeper topics like the Holy Spirit and like the manifestation of that. We want to cover relationships down the line and so much more, but one step at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Super excited about season 1. Okay, you guys could find Daring Faith on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We have the link to our YouTube channel on our Instagram page.
Yes.
So be sure to subscribe to that and follow our Instagram page at Daring Faith Podcast. We'll post all weekly announcements, and you guys can stay up to date on everything there and DM us anytime. If you guys have suggestions for future episodes and guests, or want to get to know us more, have questions and feedback you want to share, we'd love to connect with y'all. If you guys are local, let's grab a cup of coffee and chat.
Yes.
We want to know how the Lord has been working in and through your lives. And if you're interested in being on this podcast, if there's something you feel the Lord has really taught you about, which you have a passion for, let's chat. And, you could come on here and share it.
Yes.
Yeah. We're always open to meeting new people and building connections. So seriously, get in touch with us anytime. We also want to thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for your prayers, support, and encouragement throughout the whole process of starting season 1. I know a couple of you knew about this idea from the start, and y'all have been so patient and wonderful, and we couldn't have done it without you guys. We would also like to thank our team working behind the scenes, making Daring Faith accessible to you guys. Your work does not go unnoticed.
Definitely.
So, that's about it for today.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this journey and being part of this incredible season of our lives, which we're honored to share with you guys all. We'll be back next week with a really exciting episode that you guys don't want to miss. Have an awesome week, and God bless you. Bye.
Bye.